We're talking actors and directors who put on the shows.
We're talking playwrights and designers who you'll want to know.
From the very first rehearsal to the final curtain call.
We might be off Broadway, but we're talking about it all.
'Cause we're two local gals
With global pals, it's everything, everything, everything theater.
with Benita
And Ellen. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Everything Theater Podcast Backstage episode. I'm Ellen Cribbs.
And hi there, I'm Benita Zahn, and oh, I love being backstage again with you, Ellen.
I know. Luckily, yeah, these are the ones that we don't really, care what we look like because it's been very sleep deprived and got the kid down, got the toddler down, baby sleeping. So good time to record.
So you said she found her voice. Is she an alto or soprano?
I would say an alto. Like her cries, it can get up there, but she's a grunter.
Oh.
So, that's really interesting. I remember in college studying vocal stuff and saying, you should look at how babies cry because they have not learned how to damage their voice. They can cry for hours and hours and not go hoarse or have laryngitis. It's because they just know how to be open. And so it's very fascinating to watch my daughter, especially with the grunting. I don't know how she does it for so long without hurting her voice.
But she doesn't, and she's got your rapt attention. So, you may be her best first audience. So the grunting may go on because she's getting good feedback. Are you applauding?
More like just rocking her.
Right.
Let's stop the grunting so we can all get some sleep.
Right. Oh, and it's hard to just then get in the car and drive her around the block a little bit. I've had friends do that.
Yeah.
Just drive with baby,
Yeah.
But Ellen, you're looking good. You're looking perky. So
Thanks.
you're faking it, huh? You're a good actress.
Yeah. No, it's going really well. She's a pretty good sleeper, so we've been very fortunate.
Good. Oh, that's great. So you get a little bit of, you get some Z's in there.
I do. And the nap, the midday nap was what it's all about.
For you or for her? No,
Yeah. She naps pretty much all day, but I find one in the middle of the day.
You need that.
Yeah.
So you keep going. You see, oh, this talk now I want to yawn. It's just... So you posted a fabulous question, and before you asked, as a performer, do you like using microphones? What are the best as an audience? What kind of shows and venues should use them? Are there situations when it was too hard to hear without? Are shows sometimes over amplified? And I know where that came from.
Right.
And funny stories about using a microphone. You and I both went to see Mean Girls.
Mm-hmm.
And we both came away with the same feeling. Oh.
Yeah, that was very loud. It was so amplified that it was hard to understand lyrics. And we were talking about how that's an issue with a lot of big shows these days. And we talked about Hadestown was one that came up in our conversation. And when I saw that, the opening number, I couldn't tell you barely any of the words because it was just so loud.
Right.
And it's just a new trend, I feel.
Right. And I said to you, well, thank you. Because I was beginning to worry it was me, from years of working in television, you wear the IFB, and all these years later, I still don't know what that means. All I know is back in the day in particular, they tune you in, you'd get saying, bam, you'd be blasted. So it's a bit of an occupational hazard is that I have tinnitus or tinnitus, pick however you want to say it. And I used to have incredibly sensitive hearing. So it's that very high pitch frequency that my brain keeps wanting to make. So I always worry, oh goodness, I'm at the theater. Is that why I'm having trouble? But then when we looked at each other and you're going, I said, okay. And then, a lot of theaters now loop. For those uninitiated, that's a way of wiring the theater so that people who have hearing devices can, if you will, tune in, or you can wear something in the house that they may provide you with to augment the audio. But again, your point, Ellen, is when it's really amplified, it's distorted.
Yeah. And I've noticed differences in shows that I saw 20 years ago and then recently, and the difference in amplification is very noticeable, especially with the bands. They really are blasting that music now.
Yeah, and you need a better balance.
Yeah.
I joke, I blame it all on rent. Any note you can sing, I can sing louder.
Yeah. That
You know,
certainly is one that went for that kind of almost uh rock concert
hmm
vibe. Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. And but we're stuck with that until somebody changes it. Do you like working? Do you like being mic'd in a show?
You know, it's interesting. I've almost never been mic'd in a show. And I know a lot of that will be because I do a lot of straight plays as opposed to musicals. And the musicals is kind of where the mics are needed.
Yeah.
But I was trained at Ithaca College. They would not let us get anywhere near a mic. They said, if you can't project in these spaces, then we're not doing our job. You have not been trained properly. So
Right.
no mics for you.
I joke, I always got an I in rest quietly in kindergarten. That meant I needed improvement. I've been projecting my whole life. Um, I've worked in Park Playhouse, so
Hmm.
you really need to be amplified there.
Yes, yes.
But I just worked at Fort Salem,
Mm-hmm.
and when I sang with Jerry Gretzinger and Jess Layton, when we as the singing anchors, we used handheld, and I often felt, why? Okay, and it gives you an opportunity as a singer to interpret
Mm-hmm.
in ways that you might not be able to if you're not doing Rent.
Right.
But we just did Steel Magnolias and we wore body mics.
Hmm.
Exactly. Hmm.
Yeah.
Far be it for me to, this is what they do in that house. And it's a small house and it's pretty lively.
Mm-hmm.
But then I jumped into another production of it down at Anthony's. It was a dinner theater, and we were mic'd there, body mic'd as well.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Huh.
So it's I don't know, maybe the also the ancillary question to this is, our audience is expecting that now.
Maybe. And it's hard, it's hard for me to unlearn the projection. That's why I struggle when I'm given a mic. I know that anytime I've done on camera work, my feedback has been, Ellen, the mic is right there. Stop shouting.
Yeah.
Because
And
that's just,
when
yeah.
you do movie work,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
you know, I had to come in once and I was coming from behind something. It really is. They don't talk much louder than this in the set. Everybody's really soft. You can barely hear me now, right? You should probably
Yeah.
point the mic better to me. And I'm thinking, oh, please, dear God, don't let me miss my cue.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I'd already done movies before, so I knew to tone it down. But
Mm-hmm.
this was, can somebody just give me a
Well, and then you've got obviously the technical aspect of mics as well, which very ironically today we had to start our Zoom meeting late because my microphones were acting up.
and not that you and I really need a mic, but
Right.
yeah,
Just for recording. Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
funny. Have you ever had an oopsie daisy with a mic?
The one of the only shows I've had a mic on, my oopsie daisy, was that we're doing 39 steps. And which is a crazy wild show, and things would always go wrong. And there's one particular performance where just everything went wrong, and it was hilarious. We kept a running list in the green room that we posted of all the mess ups that happened. And so this particular performance where so much went wrong, the show ended, the actress and I went backstage and immediately just started recanting, oh my gosh, can you believe that happened and this happened? And did you see that? Oh, this person fell, blah, blah, blah. And immediately one of the crew members ran up and said, your mics are still on. The audience hears everything you're saying right now. Whoops.
And that's the hardest thing. Look, I spent my life working wearing a microphone. is you got to be aware, and it's easy to forget when you're used to wearing one, but you never say anything you don't want your grandmother to hear.
Mm-hmm.
But it was funny, when we were doing ragtime at Park Playhouse, and it's a big cast, and we didn't have enough mics for everybody, and it was a very detailed mic plot.
Mm-hmm.
Who got what.
Oh yeah.
We get to the last show. It's closing night, and I had gotten sick like 2 days before. You're right, it's the whole summer. So
Mhm.
vocally, I don't have the power I normally would have anyway. And I knew whose mic I was getting at this point. We'd been at it a month. And there was something, and I don't remember the specifics, but it should have struck me that
Mhm.
somebody made a comment about the mic that they were handing off. But da 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 da. And I get up to do, he wanted to say, and I go,
Oh.
and there's that moment going, did I turn on the mic? Did I turn off the mic? Because you get it switched on, you just put it in your pack. And, and what do I do? What do I do? I know where the audio guy is going to be. And I can practically, and Tommy Rosati is a fabulous audio guy. And I can practically feel Tommy, all the way away going, the mic never comes up. They gave me the wrong mic. Someone
Oh.
in the switches at the very last show swapped mics, gave mic 2 to the 4 and gave the 4 to the 2.
So the sound guy was like, what is happening? Why are my numbers not adding up?
Right.
Yeah.
So, you just sing your best, but I couldn't even.
Yeah.
But
I mean, Park Playhouse, I mean, that being in Washington Park, you need those microphones because holy cow. I mean, that's just a cavernous open space.
yeah. And there was nobody, the way I was staged, I couldn't even get near anybody to.
Right. Oh.
Live theater.
And that's what we had a conversation when I directed Servant of Two Masters last year because it was outdoors. And my initial thought was, should we do individual body mics? But then Nick Nealon, who is a great sound and light designer in the area, he said, no, I suggest you do floor mics, which worked really well. The only thing is then you have to be careful with your actors because if they turn slightly upstage, then all of a sudden there goes.
It's like, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. You've got a little Doppler effect going, but not for the reason you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Miking is an art, and miking out of doors is a specialty. And now they do it all with the iPad.
Yeah.
They're amazing to do that work and to know it's science, to know how the arc of sound is and where it travels. And what happens if it rains, when it's more humid. And
Yes.
fascinating. Fascinating. We've got some great answers. Do you want to jump in?
Okay, so this is from Bridge Street Theater. So I'm guessing this is someone at Bridge Street Theater that posted that I was playing Benny South Street in what was unquestionably the worst production of Guys and Dolls ever staged. We were in a 500-seat house, but because there were equity actors in the cast, myself included, seating was roped off and audiences were supposed to be limited to under 100. The production certainly flouted that requirement. The band for the show was seated on stage at the rear behind the action, and most of us in the cast were trained to fill a house far larger than 500 seats. However, the producer decided that for consistency, all the soloists in the show needed to wear body mics. Only 6 very poor quality ones were available, which meant we'd be spending the entire show madly swapping mics backstage. On top of that, the poor kid they had running the sound mixing board had virtually no experience. The initial attempt made to use the mics was at our first dress rehearsal, like we didn't have enough to worry about already. First time I was supposed to wear one was in my duet in Act 1 with Nicely Nicely. What emerged from the speakers was mostly static when the mics weren't cutting out entirely. Finished the number, walked off stage, removed the body mic, handed it to the ASM, and told her I would not be wearing it again, and didn't. Wasn't about to turn my performance, such as it was, over to an inept sound guy and subpar equipment when I was perfectly capable of making myself heard and understood without either. Still infuriated at myself for not reporting this theater to the union at the time.
Yeah. But I understand that from the story I told,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
it happens, but
It's an added stress.
yeah, it is. I mean, we were fine until that very last night, but there is that moment every night. You know, Sean says, I've never liked microphones, but that's at least partly due to my high school experience. Our microphones were ancient and unreliable. However, I've grown to appreciate them in the right setting. They definitely make it life easier in musicals with larger bands in terms of balancing vocals and instruments. And when Confetti Stage does an outdoor show in a big field by the airport, they definitely help fight both air traffic and sound dissipation in open space. Sometimes annoying, sometimes a godsend.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
yeah.
Stage.
Yeah, that's exactly. Confetti Stages where we did Servant of Two Masters. And when those planes went past, it was nice to have those microphones.
Yeah.
Patrick says, I've never been a fan of microphones, and frankly, I rarely do shows when they're required, and have tried to avoid using them whenever possible. There are just too many problems. You're always aware that a show is mic'd, and usually because of the microphone making itself known by amplifying ambient sound, dropping out, or otherwise making noise interruptions. However, with proper equipment and a conscientious and skilled engineer, the miking of the socially distanced Cried Out by Homemade Theater in the first year of the pandemic was given a masterful amplification by Tom Moeller, who was working for the first time outdoors. His work was essential to the production as we had to seat the audience many yards apart.
Yeah. You know, it's not an only or an either. It's a when. You know, and you need a masterful hand. John says, years ago, I was playing Finian in Finian's Rainbow, and the company was using microphone packs for the first time. During one performance, a person helping out backstage for the performance came running into the dressing room to tell me the battery was dying in my microphone pack and asked if she had time to change it. I said, not really, since I had to be back on stage in a minute or so. She grabbed the pack quickly, changed the battery, and quickly replaced the pack. However, she either didn't realize that the pack was clipped on a belt around my waist under my costume or missed the belt. Instead, she clipped it onto the waistband of my undershorts. I am then on stage during my last scene in the show, and while performing, had the following internal dialogue in my head. What is this I'm feeling? Oh, it's the microphone pack working its way down my leg. So that night, Finian left Rainbow Valley via a ramp that went off stage past part of the first row of the audience and out to a side door that led to the backstage with a microphone pack trailing out of his pant leg. Kind of ruined the magic.
Yeah.
I think anyone who's worn a mic, if it's, you know, you've had to clip it on, there's that moment of, oh my goodness, can I possibly grab my butt in public? Because you feel the mic making a journey it shouldn't.
And the question of where to put it, right? I know in 39 Steps, there's so many costume changes. So literally one dress, I shoved it between my boobs. And that's where the huge pack stayed because I couldn't put it anywhere else.
Yeah. And, you know, I've taken, oftentimes, and you'll see it, pardon me, to wear it on your brassiere. You know, I like that word, brassiere. You know, to hook it there. But then if your character requires sitting, oh, good Lord, because, you know, where are you? It's on my spine. Do I put it between the shoulder, you know, up to the side? And how do I sit?
Yeah.
You know?
Those packs are pretty big. Yeah. Let's see. Ryan says, I don't necessarily mind microphones so long as they're properly coordinated and don't cause feedback or echoing. But as a director, I've always told my actors that if I go to the back of the house and I can't hear them without one, then they're not doing their job. When I was an actor, I never needed a microphone and took great pride in that.
Just what you said.
And
Gail says, I think they're valuable in certain situations, and of course, musicals, but they drive sound designers nuts with their lack of reliability, consistency, and also they are overused in training situations. So young actors stop learning to effectively use their voices to fill a room. Definitely not opposed to them, just sigh, which is what you so aptly, laid out. You've got to know how to use your voice.
and it's interesting because I spoke about being trained at Ithaca, and there was a show in the big theater, and I had to do an intimate love scene. And I just remember our director would keep saying, this needs to be really intimate, make it really small, make it really feel like it's just the two of you. And then our voice teacher would come by and say, I can't hear you guys. You need to be louder. So it would be louder. And then our director would come back and say, no, we need to make this small. And trying to find that balance. It's tricky.
Yeah, we never use mics. I'm
Mhm.
an Oswego grad, and Waterman Stage was one of the top, I think, top 50, I think it was in the 50 of stages, theaters, and educational facilities in the country at the time. They've redone it. I don't like it. I got that out there. But you could, I remember coming into school and standing on the stage, it was like I was in a temple. And here you
Yeah.
test out that it was so alive. So never mic'd.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, I hope kids are still learning that.
I know. You got to learn about the diaphragm, the vocal support, breath control.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Open it up.
Let's see. Maria says, as someone who believes in equality of both performer and audience, for those who struggle with their hearing, it is an accessible way for them to hear all performances. It also can be easier on the voice of the actor for long periods. Even with best vocalization practices, the voice can tire if slightly under the weather, etc. As to equipment used, I'm still learning what works best. However, I do suggest to alleviate tripping hazards, use wireless microphones, and a good soundboard are best to help make the performance fully accessible.
So there
Which,
you have it.
yeah. And this kind of goes to what you're talking about, the devices, the assistive hearing devices.
Mhm.
And I think that's interesting when theaters use that, where people who want the amplification can wear a device and hear it, but
Mhm.
the rest of the audience doesn't have to hear the amplification.
Mhm.
There's a lot of extra work to kind of put that kind of system in place,
Yeah.
but
I know, Capital Rep is looped.
mm,
Um, I don't know about Proctor, so I'm not going to hazard a guess.
mm-hmm,
But if you run a theater and you're looped, let us know.
yeah,
We'll share that for those who are, struggling. And quite frankly, that goes to the conversation that we had last week with Wesley,
mm-hmm,
right? Um,
yeah,
is that, the tried and true audience is plus 50
mm-hmm,
and may be dealing with hearing impairment. Although, look, a lot of kids, listening to loud music, um, but that's something else to consider when you're
mm-hmm.
trying to retain an audience.
And as I think it was Ryan said, when you're the director, you need to make sure you're on top of your actors about that. You need to sit in the back row and make sure that everything's clear. Because I know sometimes, just actors talking over one another. They can be loud enough, but that distorts the sound and you can't hear, so there's a lot to think about to make sure
Yeah.
that those words are getting out to the audience.
And use your consonants.
Yes. Batika, batika, batika.
So when I first started in media, I was working a radio show in college. It was a non-commercial FM station that was owned and operated by the state. And I worked a progressive rock and jazz show, mostly from midnight to 2 a.m. But every so often I would fill in on a shift earlier in the day. And the station manager, I drove him nuts. He said, why do you say 20? I said, because that's how you say it.
Instead of 20.
In 20, right. And my
Mm.
mom had studied to be a speech therapist. So diction. And my dad had performed diction. There was, if you talk sloppily in my house, you were banished.
Yep.
So I would have to work at it. And would come down almost every time. And finally goes, what's with you? All those consonants. And I looked at him, I said, I just wanted you to visit. He didn't know what to say. Slunk off, never bothered me again. And I kept saying 20.
20. I was always told that my STR clusters and INGs were sloppy, which they probably still are, but I had to really work at it in training. And my teacher would tell me to say frustrating. It's frustrating. Make sure you get all those consonants. And so I would say something and she would just look at me and say, frustrating. And it certainly was frustrating.
And again, who says it like that?
Mhm.
But I suppose you could argue and say, who says 20?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and that might be a conversation to have, with our audience also,
Yeah.
share with us your diction stories.
That's a good one.
I think we probably all had some of those.
Mm-hmm.
And aren't there times when you're in the theater and you just want to stand up and go, guys, can I buy a consonant?
Yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Just kind of help me out here. Forget about your mic.
I just need to understand the words that are coming out of your mouth.
Exactly. So I was trying to, oh, that's so funny. People ask the weirdest things on Twitter. I'm trying to find an email from Schenectady Light.
Oh, nice.
Schenectady individual tickets are now on sale. Hear
Mm.
ye, hear ye. You can buy them or buy a season subscription now. And for Schenectady Light Opera. And they're doing The Wedding Singer, though that's in March, but their first show up is Once.
Mm-hmm.
And that's September 16th to the 25th. And if you've never seen that, I'd say it's unique.
Very
And,
different. Yeah.
and you get to drink beer,
Mm-hmm.
right? For
It made
those.
me cry.
I'm
I
sorry?
love it. It made me cry. It's a good story.
It's nice. First date is the November show. Little Night Music is in January. Everybody seems to be doing Little Night Music right now. The Two of Us
Hot, yeah.
Productions is doing it also. And, I've had the good fortune to perform with them in the past. And I would love to play Desiree. I've done that song is in my cabaret act. I just can't make the drive,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah, that's a long way.
Yeah, gives no meaning to schlep. The Wedding Singer is March time. It Should Have Been You is in May. And The Complete Works of William Shakespeare Unabridged is their summer show. That is such a fun show.
I love that show. I had the fortune to do that show.
Did you?
Yeah. I made it happen. It was a dream show. And I took my company, my Shakespeare company in Chicago, and I said, we're just going to do it. And I'm going to be in it.
A lot of lines to learn.
Yes.
Yeah. And quick reminder, when's this hitting, Ellen, since you and I haven't talked dates?
Yeah. Next week's the 9th.
The 9th. So those of you who are interested in auditioning for Assassins, Park Stage Company is auditioning for Assassins. I believe the 13th is the audition date.
And title of show as well in the same
Yes.
audition. Yeah.
Yes. So jump online, take a look, see. The actors are getting paid, and it's a lovely house. And if you do get cast, be sure to bring chocolate for Ava Tanquay.
Yes.
The story is that she likes her chocolate. A former star of the music hall many moon ago. if you want everything to go well, treat your sound person well and bring chocolate.
And really quickly, actually, I want to throw a shout out. Speaking of the prima donnas of music halls, Kelly Gliptis, who was on our show a while back, she talked about opera. She worked at Saratoga Opera. Just had her opening night playing Carlotta in The Phantom of the Opera in the West End in London.
Oh,
So
spectacular.
she's going to be there for a while. I'm very, very proud of her. That's amazing.
Brava.
Yeah.
So if you've got stuff you want us to share, let us know. Got something neat coming up, let us know, because we're everything theater.
Thanks for listening, guys. I'm Ellen Cribbs.
And I'm Benita Zahn. Stay cool. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to the Everything Theater podcast. Special thanks goes out to Alice Grinling for our photography and Justin Friello for composing our amazing theme song. Please remember to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you want to share your thoughts or what's going on in your theater community, you can reach out to us on social media or through our email at everythingtheaterpodcast@gmail.com. Till next time, it's everything, everything, everything.